Well, hello friends and photogs. Jeff McFeeters here with the Monday mission. Should you choose to accept this mission? No, it's really not mission impossible. This is certainly a simple project, and it is what to do about crepuscular rays. You come upon a scene like this and you can see this beautiful light coming through a fog in the morning, diffusing around the scene and coming up over the tops into the sky. It looks great. So you take some pictures and you get home and you're so disappointed because it kind of looks like that. You're thinking, man, I know there were rays in there. Man, how do I get those rays back? I mean, you have to create them, or you have to fake it, or I see in a little bit, but how do I get them back? I want it to look like kind of like that, and maybe even better than that. That's kind of how it looked. I'm going to show you how to do this in Lightroom and then also in Photoshop if you don't use Lightroom, using Adobe Camera Raw. And there's lots of different ways of doing this, but this is just some simple techniques to, not so much to make rays that aren't there, but to enhance the rays that are there. Okay, so let's get into it. Here we are in Lightroom CC. I took a bracket of this scene, so here's the first image. That's the 2 stops under, 2 stops over. Okay, now you kind of see it in the, there we go. You can just barely make out the rays here. All right, what I will do is usually I'll take those 3 images and combine them into a single image, a 32-bit master file, and you're thinking, why? I mean, it looks the same as that. That's before and that's after. What's really the difference? Well, there are 2 really important differences. Not so much, maybe the first one isn't as critical for a scene like this, but if I take this scene and zoom into 2:1, there is our detail, not too bad. Shot it at low ISO. But when I merge them together, the 32-bit version here is going to be noticeably sharper, better defined, and cleaner, less grain. It's going to look really quite a bit better, and it's got the full dynamic range of all 3 of the scenes. I mean, it doesn't look like it here, but let's zoom out real quickly and just take a look at these. If I take the original exposure, it's a 16-bit DNG file or RAW file, and Lightroom, as well as Adobe Camera Raw, will give you plus or minus 5 stops. So if you grab your exposure and drag it to the left, you can go down 5 stops. Here you see it's not really, there's still more dynamic range, isn't there? Go all the way up, 5 stops over, so we definitely have more. We didn't get all the way to white, can't get all the way to black. So we definitely have more than 10 stops of light. We take the 2 stops under, go all the way down, it's still not pure black. So you know that it goes more than 7 stops down. We take the overexposed by 2 stops for the, and push it to the right. We're going to hit white right about in there, close to 5 stops. Come down, of course, we don't expect to come down. All right, so we already know that we've got way more than 10 stops in this. If I come to the 32-bit file, it looks just like, can't really hardly tell the difference, can you? Except up here, when you have that 32-bit file loaded, your exposure range is now, Adobe lets you have 10 plus or minus. So it's being a little unresponsive here. Come on. There we go. Black. Well, actually it's not quite black. I actually can see some lightness in this area right in here. But so maybe another stop would have taken that all the way to black. If I go to the right, get up to white, right about there. 8.5 stops, somewhere 8.3 stops. So, there's probably 20 stops of light in this scene. And we're trying to, get really nitpicky in this area here. So we need really as much range as possible to fine tune that, don't we? So that's where the 32-bit, not only do we have a cleaner, more sharper, almost like pre-sharpened image, but it's got all this dynamic range of light as well as for things like sharpening and detail that we can do here in Lightroom. In Lightroom, everything that we have here will all work in the 32-bit mode. Really, it's as well as Adobe Camera Raw, they're fully 32-bit compatible. So you have a lot greater range, which also means a lot more fine-tuning possibilities. Okay, what do we do here just to quickly get this to where we can see those rays? Well, if I take the highlights and bring them all the way down, start to see a little bit here. I can push contrast a little bit, and let's bring down my blacks. I realize we're making the whole picture really dark. That's not the point right now. Could add a bunch of clarity, but this is just kind of affecting areas that isn't what I really want to do right now. So that, I'll get to that later. What I really want to do is come into the tone curve, and I am on the picking this little local adjustments tool. I'm going to come in here somewhere where it's not really a ray and bring down the shadows. I think I can do that a little bit here, and then I want to come in where it's brighter and push it up a little bit. It's kind of hard to do on this with Lightroom. It works better sometimes depending on the amount of contrast. I push contrast down, it might have actually. I know it seems obvious, but it doesn't seem obvious, but it actually sometimes works better when you lower contrast. Like so. So we get a little gentle S-curve. I could have just done that manually, but I kind of like to grab some pixels in there and take a look at it, see what I'm doing. Now you can see that where we were before and where we are now, we see the rays much more clearly. And all that's left then is to come up here and do some fine tuning, get our blacks back where they belong, and our shadows up a little bit. Our white point. And blacks, kind of like that. Where are we here? There we are, a little bit better. Now, adding a little clarity is going to pull out a little bit in this area particularly, and we can come down here to dehaze, pull that up some, and voila, we had the scene before, and now everyone can see that beautiful filtered light happening in the scene. Okay, same thing we can do by taking the 3 files, going up to Photo, Edit in merge to HDR Pro in Photoshop. When we do that, it's going to take those 3 photos, do the same thing you just did in Lightroom, but doing it in Photoshop. I kind of like some of the additional filters that are available in Photoshop and the way that ACR works. I know Lightroom's the digital darkroom part of Lightroom is designed to be basically Adobe Camera Raw, but there are a few little differences, and they don't work identically. Now, there are advantages to Lightroom, and there are some advantages to Adobe Camera Raw, in my opinion, namely the issue of smart filters and being able to then selectively apply that adjustment by brushing in and out the effect, easily adjusting opacity of the scene, and that sort of thing. But a lot of people don't really understand how the merged HDR Pro works. It looks funky. It's like, oh, why don't I just use Photomatics? Well, let's look at this. Just leave it at 32 bits, make sure that's not checked, and click OK anyway. Even though it looks really strange, don't mess with anything. Just let it do its thing, click OK. It's going to come back into Photoshop, and it's still going to have that kind of weird look, isn't it? Go up here to View, down to 32-bit preview options, and change this exposure. So you're in exposure and gamma. Change that to 0. Click OK. And now you're back to where we were in Lightroom with that 32-bit master. I'll Command J or Alt J on Windows to duplicate my layer, and I'll go to Filter, Convert for Smart Filters. The reason I do this is because when I'm applying the Adobe Camera Raw filter as a filter, I like to be able to come back into it. So you see this little kind of symbol here, and that means it's a smart filter. Go up here to Filter, Camera Raw filter, and it will open up in Adobe Camera Raw. Now we can do the similar things that we did in Lightroom, to where I can kind of see the light a little bit better. Go over here to the tone curve. Make sure I'm in parametric. The way this works in the point curve, now you can adjust. This is all kind of the same window in Lightroom, so it still does all this. But you can adjust your color curves separately, and that can be really useful in a case like this, but we won't take the time to do that today. So again, you can come up here. This is over here now, the little local selection tool to pick pixels. We can come in here, we can drop that curve here on one of the rays, and get the light adjusted, and we see the light already much better. Now we can come back here to adjust our clarity a little, pull in some of that middle ground down underneath the trees, see what's happening here. Don't go too much, because a lot of that's going to come out when you bring your shadows back and bring your black point back. If you hold the Option key, you can kind of see where that black point is. So you can kind of keep some contrast and that sort of thing. So let's see how we did here. Drop this back into Photoshop, the changes, and there you go. Now you can, I feel like at this point is where I would call this my beginning point. I've gotten my images basically adjusted, merged together into 32 bits, adjusted, and there are still some things, filters that are available in the 32-bit. If they're not available, they will be gray, but there's some sharpening that's available. Several things are still available as 32-bit as well as camera raw filter. So I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope that it's given you some ideas on just how to quickly prepare your image you get home to at least have the rays a little more visible so that you can then continue on with your normal editing workflow to make your images be the best that they can be, and to show you the scene as you saw it. So thanks again for watching. If you have any questions, please email or contact me on social media, Facebook, my website. Happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that may have been difficult to understand in going through this quickly. Have a great week and take awesome photos. Thanks again.